All right, this is our final segment this morning with Davidson County Sheriff Daron Hall. Do we still have Brian on line too? Brian, are you there, Brian? Good morning.
Oh, good morning. The show wasn't playing while I was going, so you caught me off guard.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's all right. You go ahead.
They don't do that anymore because I listen to the show on the phone. Yeah, I wanted to say, can the sheriff's deputies be not deputized like in the old days, but if they're having a big emergency, I know they'll call in the TBI, or like if they're having a lot of crime or some shootings to help out. And I didn't know about that the deputies will go out to evict people. What are some other duties that deputies do? A lot of people know it because I live out in the country, and deputies out here are a lot different. They actually can arrest you and stuff, and I got a ticket from one, I think.
Yeah.
But can you guys arrest people and do stuff like that? Can you help out the police if they have emergencies, like on the street or whatever?
That's a great question. Yeah, so let's separate the emergency situation where we work with the police department on in virtually every situation I can imagine. I mean, we're working on nights of protest or special events, or we've got staff that are on our what we call our special operations response team. They work in all sorts of ways to provide assistance to them and work with them. Of course, we're also booking folks who are on mass arrest, and so we do a lot with them, OEM, and those types of special emergency situations where our duties can allow us to participate and do allow us to do that. On a regular day in Nashville, unlike in other counties, the police department have the arrest responsibilities, the investigation responsibilities of all crime. And so what that really means is, because we have a metro government, the police department are in charge of making arrests and investigating crime, and so there's one agency doing that. We do everything else. And what does that mean? Well, there's 250,000 civil process a year. What is that? It's a warrant, it's an eviction, it's an order of protection, it's a divorce, it's a garnishment. Those are all court orders that we go out and serve all over Nashville, and we're kind of the civil law enforcement person. We do all the court security for every courthouse. We do hospital security, and we run all of the jails here in Nashville. There are other things that we do and can do with the police department, if you will, in a partnership. But what we don't want to do, and which the law doesn't allow us to do, is to do the same function they're performing. If the police officer's doing patrol, which they do, we don't patrol. We do not pull people over for speeding. But if the chief of police and I sat down today and worked out an MOU together and said, why don't you guys take over murder arrest? I'm just making up some hypothetical. Then the way the charter is written, as long as we're both not doing it, then it's the authority of it. The sheriff has the same authority any other sheriff has. The problem is we do not, because of the metro government, duplicate services. That's what the voters said in '64. Right. And so it's not an authority question, it is a charter question as to no duplication of service. We both can't be pulling people over. We both can't be doing homicide investigations. And so we have a really good relationship with them. I've been around the country. I think this is one of the better governments I've ever experienced, and I'm talking about how it works, not because of the people, but I like the line of separation.
The way it's set up.
I do like it, and there are things you could do differently. But if you started all over from scratch, you could do some things differently. But the voters didn't want you to duplicate. But because the sheriff is a state constitutional office, the metro government can't take authority away from it. It's a state constitutional office. And so we've had council members and others in the last few years try to order the sheriff to not cooperate with ICE or to not do this. Well, the way the government's set up, that's a metro government, metro legislative body cannot order the sheriff to take authority away. So we just can't both do the same thing.
You both answer to different bosses. Your boss is the public.
Right.
Okay. The police chief, yes, would say he serves the public, but his boss is the mayor. The mayor can go in there and fire him today if he wants. Right. Whereas with you, it's much more difficult to remove a sheriff because you're elected, or as we saw with Robert Arnold in Rutherford County, which is good or bad, I suppose.
But we removed a mayor.
Yeah. Right. That's right. And the mayor was elected. That's right. Oh, no, that's not to say you can't remove someone once if they're found in violation of something of the law. Yeah. And that ultimately happened to Robert Arnold in Rutherford County.
And I've always struggled with this. I do think that the public accountability of this office and law enforcement is important. And what I'm saying is, trust me, I have people call the office every day. If we have an officer going too fast, they call my office and tell me that I'm wasting their taxpayer money because you don't slow him down, you know, and everything in between. I mean, I'm just talking about everything. And so when you have situations like we have in Nashville right now, where there's questions about accountability, and I don't care, and I'm not blaming or choosing either side. I don't like the fact that it runs through mayors to get down to the decision maker. I really don't. I don't think that's a good idea. It's just the way, and for example, I think you should stand on your own for the decisions you make. I don't like law enforcement being influenced by an elected position who most often doesn't have any background in this role. And what that means is the voter, if they want body cameras, then the police chief should say, I want body cameras. That's the way I feel about it. If they want the officer fired for a shooting, I think the police chief should stand on his own decisions about that. Instead, it gets lost in translation between all these agencies. In a lot of cities around the country, you find the issue of not electing the person who's in charge of law enforcement to be a real problem. I mean, you elect a DA, far more powerful than the police chief. You elect a DA, and so the questions about influence and so forth, that position is...
And most police chiefs are hired by the city council or by the mayor, aren't they? In most cities.
In cities, but not in the counties. And
very interesting.
It's a complicated issue because of the accountability of it.
Sheriff, thank you.
Thank you.
Always a pleasure. Great conversation. We'll see you again in about a month.
That sounds great.
Have a great day. We'll take a break. Programming note right after this.